Call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Chisel.
Here.
Neal.
Here.
Carlton.
Here.
Luce.
Here.
Hadley.
Here.
Bergen.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
You're all there, Mayor.
Okay. Resolution 3072, setting a date for a public hearing on a utility franchise fee revenue purpose statement, June 1st, 2020 at 5:45 p.m.
I've moved for resolution 3072 for June 1st, 2020 at 5:45 p.m.
And that was Chisel.
Yes.
Yes. Just a
I'll
reminder to say your names again.
Yep, sorry.
That's okay.
Kirk Johnson will second.
Any further discussion?
Chad, can you provide clarity? I'm sorry that I'm fuzzy on this still, about whether we need to be prepared with a franchise fee rate at this public hearing.
I'm sorry, say that again. My ceiling fan just kicked in.
Sorry,
I just turned you up a little bit, so
yeah,
sorry.
just provide clarification if we need to be ready to have a franchise fee percentage at that public hearing.
You don't have to have the percentage for this resolution. This resolution will just set the parameters for what the funding can be used for. I am going to just pull something up here real quick, though, Johanna, and just double check something. But as we talked about before, what staff is proposing with this resolution is that you just prepare that if you establish the percentage fee, which can be from 1% to 5%, what the broadest terms are for the use of that revenue per state code. And I'm just perusing here, and you do not need to set, as best I can tell, you do not need to set the percentage here. You would set the percentage in the franchise agreement if you get that far.
So our constituents would know that it could be anywhere from 0 to 5%, but they won't necessarily know what it is until we set it with the franchise agreement.
That's right, or at a later date and time.
But if we do it at a later date and time, Alliant would have to agree to open up the agreement to do it.
Yes, and that does require another public hearing and an ordinance.
Yep.
Just like when you would propose to approve the initial franchise agreement. Essentially, adding the franchise fee is opening the agreement for just that purpose, but it's the same approval process.
And we have to get Alliance approval to do it, to open it.
You do, but on this matter, obviously, we've discussed, and I think they said they're not going to resist you on this.
Okay.
This is purely a city matter.
Okay.
But it does take their approval because you're amending an agreement, right? So.
Yep. I did look if people are interested. I've looked at lots of franchise agreements and such. Just for other cities in Winnebago County, Calmer has a 3% franchise fee. Fort Atkinson has a 5% franchise fee. Austin has a 2% franchise fee. And then Waukon, obviously not, but they feel like they're in our county, 3%. So just to give folks an idea of what other communities near us have done with franchise fees.
I would just state for this agenda item, I understand that setting this public hearing is process only. However, I would register my concern that it's confusing to the public for us to be taking action on a potential franchise fee without a franchise agreement in place. And I don't think that we have discussed the merits of what percentage of franchise fee would be in a future state where that would be a possibility. And so personally feel like it's not good to act on this tonight.
I would second that. I feel like it's putting the cart before the horse. It does seem like we don't know that, one, we want to have a franchise fee associated with our franchise agreement. We haven't finished negotiations with our franchise agreement. So to me, we're putting the cart before the horse here if we approve this and move ahead with it.
Any other discussion?
I would agree with us waiting on the establishment of a franchise fee. That's loose.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
Well, actually, can I ask a question? Now that I just said that, Chad, if we have to set a hearing on the franchise agreement, correct?
Yes.
And how much? So if we set the hearing for a franchise agreement, we can't sign that agreement until we have this meeting about a franchise fee. So you were trying to streamline. Is that what you were trying to do?
I was trying to streamline, but you can certainly do the franchise agreement hearing in action without contemplating Resolution 3072. It just means that if you would propose a franchise fee, you have to do Resolution 32 or 3072
And have another public hearing.
and have a separate another public hearing, right? So you can
Okay.
only propose a utility franchise agreement without doing this action on 3072 if it contemplates 0 franchise fee.
Hmm.
Can we just table? I mean, can we, for the meeting tonight, can we just reverse it so that we're going to talk about the franchise agreement first?
Well,
And
you have a motion and second currently
No,
on the table.
I get it. Oh, I see what you're saying. We already have something on the floor.
Yeah. Any further discussion on the current motion? Roll call?
Chisel,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bergen,
No.
Hadley,
Yes.
Luce,
No?
Carlson,
Aye.
Neal.
No.
Okay, motion pass 4-3. Resolution 3073, setting a date for a public hearing on a utility franchise agreement with Alliant Energy, June 1st, 2020 at 5:45.
So Randy, I would move for Resolution 3073, setting a public hearing for June 1st, 2020 at 5:45.
I will second it.
Randy, motion, Kirk seconded, discussion.
Ted, what would the intent of this meeting be,
Which meeting?
of this public hearing? Sorry.
So a public hearing is required to enter into a franchise agreement. So if it's the council's intent to consider a franchise agreement, the public hearing is required. June 1st is a regular council meeting date, right? So it would propose putting a hearing on a franchise agreement on that regular council agenda. The next action would be you'd hold the public hearing. The next action would be to consider an ordinance approving a franchise agreement. That's the step in the approval process.
So
Does
we
that
would have to
answer-
have our, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to ask Ross if that's what he's getting at, if that answers his question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And to clarify, we have to have a franchise agreement worked out before the hearing.
We have to publish what the basic elements of the franchise agreement are when we publish the notice for the public hearing.
Okay.
So I have concerns about timeline here on two pieces. So we have a regularly scheduled council meeting for next Monday, May 18th, which would be our currently on schedule final opportunity to discuss details of what we would put in front of the public on June 1st. And I have two concerns. One is our correspondence and opportunity to schedule meetings with Alliant around negotiating our differences in the current versions have been taking more than 10 to 14 days to happen in between times. And so I'm concerned about our ability to take action about components of the agreement overall. And then secondarily, should we come to agreement with Alliant, I have concerns about us hearing from the public input about the franchise fee that we would propose between next Monday and June 1st, as we have not talked very in depth about the difference between 0, 1, and 2.
And to be clear, the franchise fee language or discussion can come anytime.
Yeah, I understand. I
Okay.
feel like if we, as a council, believe there's any chance that the fee exists is more than 0%, I would like the public to be able to speak to us on June 1st of their opinion about that matter.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
I think if we are planning, which I'm hoping that we're having another conversation with Alliant, I guess I would push everything off to the second week in June. That would be my comment, but.
Further discussion?
This is Steve. I'm of the opinion that we don't have a perspective on what we would have a franchise fee finalized. So I don't know how you get it all ready but in time. So I'm not in favor of the date mentioned.
Any other discussion?
I think we need to move forward and get this all taken care of before we do a lot of construction on Ridge Road. That we just need to push this forward and get done.
Can I, speaking of Ridge Road, and maybe this isn't the time in the meeting to ask this question, but it all ties in together. We received a letter from Alliant shortly before this meeting detailing the costs associated with the project. And I noticed that those costs associated with the project did not include the cost that the city would actually be building the trench. Is that correct? So presumably in their cost analysis is if they had to build the trench?
No, I don't know. They understand that the city's building the trench. Their proposed costs are to relocate material and labor to relocate. Not the cost of the trench. That's in the city's bid for the work.
So my question is, what if they're proposing that it costs so much because they have to move through rock? If we've built the trench that they're laying lines in, what rock are they having to move? Just my own, I'm trying to understand how this project would work.
That's why we asked for clarification. So
I'm just saying, so in the clarification, it did say that they gave us a bill, but they didn't include the costs for the city building the trench, which presumably meant they were saying if they had to build a trench through rock, this is how much it would cost.
So my understanding, and I'm not an engineer, is that any of the utilities in the trench still have to provide for what we call the sweeps out at the service drops. So as if you can imagine the trench coming along the frontage of all the residential units, they have to sweep out to serve each unit and then sink a box or a pedestal or something like that. So each place where they come out of the trench, we turn that over to the utility. So they have to do their own boring, trenching, whatever it takes to get from the trench to the house.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. That helps.
And there may be more to it than that, but I'm not an engineer, right? So.
Nope, that helps.
Any further discussion?
I would just like very respectfully, Kirk, share the duress that I experience when I hear a fellow council person say that we need to move forward because of a road project in front of us. And it continues to be difficult for me to make a long multi-year agreement with a partner in our community under the duress of a decision that is in front of us over the next 3 months. Just feel the need to share the consternation that causes me.
Well, if you'd like to pay $1.5 million extra for this project, you can do that too. That's not how I want to proceed, though.
It's so unfortunate. I feel like we're trying to make a decision based on a number that we don't understand the merit of the 1.5 million. So I understand Johanna's duress, and there's a part of me that's like, what is this 1.5 million even a real number? It doesn't even seem real. And so now we're being forced to make decisions on a false narrative. That feels even worse.
I think I'm going to go back to the motion that's on the table. Roll call.
Chisel,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Neal,
No.
Carlson,
Aye.
Luce,
No.
Hadley, Russ still there?
He's coming off mute, Chad.
Yes, come
Oh,
on.
sorry. Aye.
Bergen,
No.
Okay, motion carried. Discussion and possible action on directing city staff and city legal counsel to research and draft a complaint to file with the Iowa Utility Board and Iowa Office of Consumer Advocate regarding electric utility provider.
Does this also include the comment within the rate case, or are we addressing that differently? Does it have to be worded differently?
No, I think as I talked to John Anderson, he kind of tweaked this language a little bit, even last week. I think it's open enough that, based on your conversation, how you want to proceed with that, I think it can be broad enough, whether it's a rate case response and comment or the informal complaint process.
So by passing this, we can then negotiate with city staff how we do it. We just need to say that we want to do it.
Right. And what it says.
It says discussion and possible action.
It seems to me that any motion made would have to be specific to whether it's a rate case issue or a formal complaint.
You've discussed
Gotta
that,
be
I
one or
think,
the other.
sufficiently that I would agree it needs to be more directive in that front.
Wait, now I feel like you just said two different things. Sorry. All we need to do in order to start the process is to say we want to initiate a complaint to the utility board, but how we do it could be worked out with city staff, correct?
Well, what do you want? A complaint or comment and response? You need to tell us that, right? Because they're clearly two different things.
I thought you were saying originally that they weren't different enough that John had tweaked the language and we could just pass this right now and we would direct city staff.
He
But
tweaked the language to give you that breadth tonight, but you need to tell us what you want to do.
Got it.
I'd be in favor of actually having a start to the informal complaint process, as well as utilizing the rate case and putting documents on there too. As I don't think they are mutually exclusive. I think there's two venues that we have available to us. I think one is as we heard, much more internal, privy to only the IUB until it becomes public information. Whereas the rate case one, I think it can show the width of our concerns.
I would agree with Steve and Emily. I feel that having these items prepared and clarifying the opinions of the city and the council as a body, and having representation on paper is to document our relationship and our process is important.
Yeah, I guess I'm in favor of filing both items, recognizing that the moment we sign a franchise agreement, that might change the informal complaint, but will not change the comments. At this point, I feel like we should move ahead with both. As we discussed on Wednesday, it doesn't trigger any, I feel like you can get two birds with one stone without triggering any large financial or tying our hands in any way, shape, or form, unless that informal complaint became a formal complaint. So to me, the two could read very identically to some degree, and just be two different ways to process.
That's what I believe.
I think the formal complaint does require us to spend an inordinate amount of time and money on legal fees, whether we proceed or not.
We can't do a formal complaint right at this point. I mean, we first have to file the process that was described to us by our lawyer was that it has to start as an informal complaint no matter what. So what I'm saying is I don't think we're going to make it to the formal complaint process necessarily, but filing that informal complaint at least alerts the utility board where we are, and filing the comment alerts them in a different direction in a different avenue. But the formal complaint, we're not looking at that in any time frame that seems like it's going to work for us, but we could do the informal complaint and the comment. And they should be similar enough in language that I just don't see it being any more or less cost prohibitive.
And this is staff directed preparation. This is not asking the city to incur charges to put this together. Chad, was it your opinion that you and John could put this together in-house?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we'll need to lean on Sheila a little bit for some technical expertise, but otherwise, I think John and I got enough of it in the last couple of weeks that I think we can do that.
I would want us to lean on Sheila enough that she would be able to sort of help tweak if needed and make it stronger.
And it's got to be technically correct too. So.
Yeah.
But John's not free, right? So understand that.
No, we get it.
So is that enough direction for staff to bring something forward to the council?
Well, I'd need that in the shape of a motion.
This is Luce. Luce would move that we start a process of putting together a complaint to start the informal process, and that we also use that same that same information to be able to make comment to the current rate case.
That was made by Luce, motion made by Luce,
Bergen seconds.
seconded by Bergen. Any further discussion?
I just would like to,
What is the complaint?
The things that we discussed last Wednesday and have outlined.
and I would just like to make sure that this is a resolution or a motion asking for preparation, not for submission, that we have a chance as a council to review as a council prior to submission. Is that correct?
If that's what you'd like, that's fine.
Well, just timeline wise, what would that look like?
I have no idea. I don't know how long it takes to work through this process. It
I
didn't
think
sound
I
like it
think-
was overly complicated, right? But I don't know. A week, few days, a
I-
week or two, I don't know.
I just don't want to vote on being okay with something that I haven't seen submitted, right?
That sounds good to me.
I think this is just a lot of foot dragging.
I don't see it as foot dragging. I see it as an important step in documenting how regulated monopolies operate in communities. And it's up to us, I think, to do our due diligence to make sure that this gets the attention that it deserves in the Iowa Utility Board, right? I mean, we may not be able to help ourselves, but certainly we can create a process that's fair to all Iowa ratepayers. And I think we have a responsibility to start that process.
Do we have a motion and a second? Can you state the motion, Chad?
So the motion by Luce was to prepare a draft of the informal complaint process, start the informal complaint process and use that same information to provide comments and response in the current rate case docket. That's seconded by Bergen. Is that
So
accurate, Steve?
it's
That's
to
correct.
prepare a draft.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll show you the final work product before we send it. Right?
Any other discussion?
So wait, but we have to vote again before you send it. Or you're just going to show it to us to make sure you have our approval?
Either way. I mean, maybe, given how sensitive this is and that we present you the final work product for your vote.
I think that would be realistic.
If you want to see a final work product, you probably should vote on it.
Sounds good. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Luce,
Aye.
Bergen,
Aye.
Johnson,
No,
Chisel,
No.
Neal,
Yes.
Carlson,
Aye.
and Hadley.
Aye.
Okay. So we'll look forward to seeing the draft and working on that draft as we go forward. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Anybody second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much.